On today's episode, our recap of the fourth race in the Spartan US Championship Series from Big Bear with Jack Bauer. Welcome to the OCR Report podcast, brought to you by the OCRReport.com. We are the only podcast to focus exclusively on the elite sport of obstacle course racing, from Spartan to Tough Mudder to the OCR World Championships, and wherever the elites are racing, we are there. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the OCR Report. Welcome back to the OCR Report podcast. How are you? My name is Will Hicks. Thank you for listening. You can email me at willhicks@gmail.com. You can follow the show on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook at the OCR Report. Today on our show, we are going to recap Spartan Big Bear. Did you see the race? It was on YouTube. A day later. Spartan's been doing this lately. The big races are held on Saturday, and in past years, last year, there was live coverage the day of the race. This year, they've moved to a one-day tape delay. So the races have had a higher quality video. Instead of just, relying on cell coverage or cell signals, they're able to record on site and then, edit it together and have a finished product out the next day. So the video quality is better, much, much better than it has been last year. But you do have to wait a day for it. Jack and I talk a little bit about that in a minute. I mentioned Jack. We're going to talk with Jack Bauer about the race. What did you think? Let me know. Shoot me an email, willhicks@gmail.com. Or get me on social media at the OCR Report. So let's talk race results. The men's winner, as far as I know, literally no one saw coming. Johnny Luna-Lima with the race of his life to beat Ryan Atkins, Ryan Woods, and the field. Let's talk about the top 10 results, top 10 men, top 10 women, and then we'll talk about the series points, and then we'll talk with Jack Bauer. So for the men, the top 10 men, the Big Bear Beast, the Spartan US National Series. In first, Johnny Luna-Lima in 2 hours, 9 minutes, and 35 seconds. In second, Ryan Atkins in 2 hours, 13 minutes, and 1 second. And in third, Ryan Woods in 2 hours, 14 minutes, and 40 seconds. The rest of the top 10, Ryan Kempson in fourth, Ian Hosick in fifth, Angel Quintero in sixth, Aaron Newell in seventh, Robert Killian in 8th, Kirk DeWint in 9th, and in 10th place, Sean Stevens-Whale. For the women, your first place woman at the Big Bear Beast, Lindsay Webster, in 2 hours, 26 minutes, and 13 seconds. Second place was Rhea Kolbl, 2 hours, 30 minutes, and 49 seconds. And in third place, Nicole Mericle, in 2 hours, 33 minutes, and 11 seconds. The rest of the top 10 women: in fourth, Leanne Wasteny; in fifth, Faye Stinning; in sixth, Rose Wetzel; in seventh, Amanda Nadeau; in eighth, Alyssa Hawley; in ninth, Jamie Brusa; and in 10th, Ashley Heller. Congratulations to all of the top 10 men and top 10 women from Big Bear. Let's talk about these series points. The Spartan US Championship Series is a 5-race series. Big Bear was the 4th race in the series. At the end of each race, you receive points based on your place. First place gets 300 points. Second place gets 264. Third gets 240. Fourth gets 216 points. Then fifth place gets 192. After fifth place, it goes down 1 point per placing slot. So sixth gets 191. Seventh gets 190. Eighth gets 189. All the way down to 1 point. So, after 4 races, here are your series point leaders. For the men, Ryan Atkins in first place with 1,092 points. In second, Ryan Kempson with 943 points. In third, Johnny Luna-Lima with 889 points. In fourth, Ryan Kent with 856 points. And in fifth, Kirk DeWint with 777 points. So again, Ryan Atkins is in first with 1,092. Second place is Ryan Kempson with 943. Basically, as long as Ryan Atkins shows up to Utah and can walk the course, he will win the US Championship Series. It's not a guarantee, but If I had to bet money, I would bet a lot of money on Ryan Atkins winning the 2019 title. For the women, in first place is Lindsay Webster with 1,128 points. In second place is Nicole Mericle with 1,104 points. In third is Kolbl with 885 points. In fourth, Alyssa Hawley with 813 points. And in fifth, Rose Wetzel with 808 points. On the women's side, it's a lot closer between the top two women. Lindsay Webster or Nicole Mericle have won every single race this year. Nicole won the first two. Lindsay's won the most recent two. Essentially, what it comes down to for Lindsay and Nicole, Lindsay is in first, Nicole is in second. Lindsay has a 24-point lead on Nicole. Between first and second place, there are 36 points. So even though Nicole's in second, if she wins Utah, she wins the series. If Lindsay wins Utah, obviously she wins the series. She's in first place. What if someone else wins Utah? What if Kolbl wins Utah? What if someone comes out of the blue, never heard of, wins Utah? Lindsay and Nicole finish in second and third place. Okay, so let me give you a scenario. Kolbl finishes in first in Utah. Nicole Mericle finishes in second. Lindsay Webster finishes in third. If that happens, Nicole and Lindsay would be tied for first place for the whole series. But because Nicole finished higher at Utah than Lindsay, Nicole would win the series. All Lindsay Webster has to do to win the entire series is finish ahead of Nicole Mericle. For Nicole Mericle to win the series, she needs to finish at least one spot ahead of Lindsay Webster. That's a long way to say. Between Lindsay and Nicole, whoever wins Utah wins the series. Before we talk with Jack Bauer, let me remind you to leave a review for the show on Apple Podcasts. Open the purple podcast player on your iOS device, your iPhone or your iPad. Search for the OCR report, click our logo, and then scroll down to click Write a Review. And I will read it on a future episode. Thank you. Jack Bauer and I have talked about many races many times. It's good to get his thoughts on Big Bear. It's time to talk with Jack Bauer. Let's go to the phones. Jack Bauer, welcome back.
Thanks, Will. What a crazy week at Big Bear, wasn't it?
What did you think of the Big Bear beast?
Well, I can tell you one thing. I nailed my predictions. Do you have a little recap of that so we can hear who I predicted and called out?
Yeah. Let's listen to this 100% real clip from last week's episode.
I'm going to go fifth place.
Ian Hosick.
Fourth, I'm going to go Ryan
Campson.
Third, surprise pick, I'm going
Ryan Woods.
I think that he's going to have a hell of a battle with my second place pick, Ryan
Atkins.
And first, I'm going to go
Johnny Luna-Lima
for the win.
Well done, Jack. That's perfect.
I know. I 5 for 5. Everyone else absolutely sucked in their predictions except for me. You heard it straight from my mouth right there, completely unedited. So, yeah, I guess we can talk about the results that I properly predicted there. Who didn't see Johnny Luna-Lima coming? I mean, that was an obvious pick.
Johnny Luna-Lima with the race of his life. I am not sure. Maybe you can tell me, what's his best race up to this point?
Do you want to know an unbelievable stat?
Tell me.
This was his first ever U.S. podium. He's podiumed in Europe before, but he's never podiumed in the U.S. before. His best place was fourth place in the 2015 Hawaii Beast, and then he also got a fourth place earlier this year, just the race before in Seattle. Previous to that, he also got a second place at the Andorra Beast in last year and third at the Morzine Beast for the European Championship. But other than that, he never had a U.S. podium before. He was probably the best racer to have never podiumed in the U.S., who primarily races here. That's just incredible.
Okay, so let me just read you his results from this is the fourth race in the series this weekend. In the first race in Jacksonville, Johnny Luna-Lima got 7th. Second race, he got 14th. In Seattle, he got 4th. And then this week, he got 1st. What happened? How did his first podium ever, he got 14th 3 races ago. What happened? How did this happen?
Well, Johnny isn't exactly some new face. In 2015, he ended up getting 21st at Tahoe, and last year he was 11th. To be honest, I didn't know that he could climb this well, but I knew that he was probably one of the top 5 descenders in the sport. And after seeing all the race highlights, and that's just from people just word of mouth and just seeing some of the splits that he's done. I looked at like Tahoe 2015 on the downhill sections back then, 4 years ago, before he was even established. He had like the 5th through 7th fastest splits back then. And last year he was one of the best descenders as well. That's just based on the timing mat locations. And unfortunately, he didn't have a Strava that I could cross-reference it. But just no one passes Ryan Atkins. And he didn't just pass him. It was like he was on a snowboard going down those hills. And honestly, I would give him he was going to be a top 5 dark horse for me for Tahoe later in the year, just based on how he's improved through the past world championships that he's been there and just his descending ability. But I had no clue that he was this good of a descender. And obviously he can climb with the best of them at this point. So, I mean, he made a name for himself, and Tahoe's just like this, like crap ton of climbing at elevation. The guy lives in Colorado. He just crushed the field, a really, really strong field this past weekend at Big Bear. I mean, would it surprise you if he's on the podium at Tahoe at this point, just based on his potential and his stats so far?
You know, when you beat Ryan Woods and Ryan Atkins and Ryan Kempson and Ian Hosick on a mountain course like that, he's not much of a dark horse, right? Like he's kind of, maybe he's not your pick to win, but you got to think of him as a threat.
I'm using the word dark horse only because this was his first U.S. podium. It's like you expect Atkins, you expect Woods and Killen, like the usual suspects through the years. And Johnny, like, he's just been tantalizingly close through the years, but never, put it all together. And obviously getting 7th in first race of the year, 4th just in Seattle last week or last month. I mean, he's been super close, and I feel like he was just one race away from having that breakthrough eventually, and this course just suited his strengths so well. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen someone haul down a hill like he did, besides John Albin and some of the OCR World Championship coverage. It was just, he's so aggressive, and the cameramen didn't stand a chance keeping up with them. And those guys are literally U.S. mountain trail running like members. So the fact that they couldn't even keep up with the guy, that's incredible. And I've never seen Ryan Atkins dropped. And you saw he went from like 4th to right on the last rig with John Albin at Tahoe. The last couple miles, it was just straight downhill. So for Atkins to have closed on Albin, arguably the best descender in the sport, like that last year, and then for Johnny to have done that to Atkins this past weekend just shows you he's just on another level in terms of descending, which I didn't think that it was possible. But man, he earned it, and he's got a great future out of him the rest of the year.
I think what surprises me the most is that it's this late in the season, and that all of a sudden it's like, wow, like if he wins the first race,
though? It's May.
Well, I'm thinking, it's late in the series at least. It's the 4th of 5 races.
Yeah,
he's had 3 other chances, and he hasn't been on the podium yet. Like when VJ started the year out dominant, it was like, okay, well, it's been the off season, he's been training, you get it. But for him to kind of pop up this 4th race of the series, and all of a sudden, bam, first place. I know it's a new terrain in the mountain with Big Bear, but anyway, it's just amazing result.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like I said, I don't think this is the last we're going to see of Johnny Luna-Lima. He's on everyone's radar. He should have been beforehand. Just if 7th place and 4th place in 2 of the past 3 U.S. Series so far, and an 11th at Tahoe, didn't show you the guy's legit. And podiuming him at the European Championship on a super mountain, just long descent course last year. I mean, more people should have seen this coming, but he didn't get the respect that he deserves.
Congratulations to Johnny Luna-Lima. Let's talk about the rest of the men. In 2nd place was Ryan Atkins. 3rd place was Ryan Woods. What did you think about the other Ryans?
So, obviously you watched the race. Did it seem like Atkins was just more tired than normal at the end of that race? Because usually after a race, he obviously is given everything, but he just seemed a little bit more exhausted. Yeah,
and I don't know if that was... It looked like he was looking over his shoulder, like he kind of yielded first place, like he knew he wasn't going to win, and so he was worried about. It looked like he was worried about Woods catching up with him.
Yeah, I mean, he had a pretty good cushion over Woods realistically, but still, I think that he probably was just shocked that Johnny could descend the way that he did, and I'm not going to use the word he coasted it in, because obviously 2nd place still really close, only about 3% slower than Johnny, but Yeah, I was just amazed. So I had that prediction contest. Do you want to take a guess? There were over 100 people who entered the contest. Give me the breakdown on, for the men, who people predicted would be the winner.
I would say 95% of them picked Ryan Atkins.
99, little over 99. It was like 99.1%.
And then Ryan Kempson's mom picked him.
No, Ryan Kempson's mom did not participate in the contest, but Robert Killian was the other person to have received the first place vote. The only person, and the person who picked Killian to win picked Atkins for second, so she was the only person to have correctly guessed that Atkins would get second place. Still pretty crazy. But if you look at the top two, one person picked Johnny Luna-Lima. If you look at the top three, only 7.9% of people thought that he would be in the top three, and only 13.9%, so roughly 1 out of 7 people who entered the contest thought that Johnny Luna-Lima would finish in the top 4.
Well, in their defense, he's only finished in fourth once this series.
Oh yeah, no. So what I'm saying is, based on the predictions that we made last week and just some of the insight, no one saw this coming, and that's what people get to freely vote who they wanted to in the anti-camp prediction contest, but it was still a surprise to the majority of people that he did that well. But I was pumped watching that, and I feel like this year we've kind of seen some of the historic top people not necessarily take a step back, but I feel like they aren't as intimidating to some of the racers anymore. I feel like if it was 2013 and you just walked up to the line and you saw Hobie call it, you're like, there's no chance I'm going to win. I'm not even going to bother. But this year, I feel like Killian's lost a little bit of his intimidation factor. Ryan Woods, obviously, through not really his own fault, but he got the penalty, and then he hurt his hamstring, so he's looked a little bit more human. I feel like guys like Tyler Rearman, Johnny Luna-Lima, Ryan Kempson bursting on the scene and making a name for themselves. It's really cool to see a lot closer of a bunch. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it used to be, it's not fair to say, but it was like Ryan Atkins and everyone else, right? And yeah, Atkins didn't win every race, or John Albin and Ryan Atkins and then everyone else. But yeah, there's a lot. It seems like there are a lot more people clumped up at the top on the men's side than the women's side right now.
Yeah, without question. But I think that it makes it awesome, because instead of just knowing the horse that's going to win the Kentucky Derby every year, it's like you really don't know what's going to happen. You have 10 people or 15 who are capable of finishing in the top 5 overall any race. It just depends on how the course suits their skill set, how they feel that day, how good everyone else races. Quite honestly, like sometimes you might bring it that day, but you're just not fit enough to beat some of the other guys. And I'm just really pumped and as a spectator of the sport. And I think that Ryan Kempson, we didn't talk about him yet, but for him to have got 4th, can that finally put to rest the claim that he's not a mountain runner? I don't know what can if this doesn't.
I don't know where that really came from. I kind of had that same perception, but it doesn't seem like it's fair, right?
Oh, not at all. I mean, he really wasn't even that far back. And he won Killington Beast last year, and I mean, he's put in a great training block specifically oriented for mountain running. I mean, he was 2:16 and Ryan Atkins was 2:13. Obviously, Atkins didn't win, but to only be 3 minutes behind Ryan Atkins in a course like this, there's no doubt that Ryan Kempson's a true mountain runner at this point.
You know, I was looking at his results, Kempson's results from the 4 races in the series so far.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, he has 943 points, and he's ahead of Johnny Luna-Lima, who has 889. So the two of them, there's a 54-point gap. If you assume they both get in the top 4, each of those spaces is worth 24 points. So that's 48 total. So if they're separated by two or more places, you could see them flip-flop in the final race of the year in Utah. So he's not a lock, Ryan Kempson, for second place, but he definitely has performed all year, and I mean he's earned that second place so far. But I don't see him dropping any worse than third, but he could easily finish second place in the point series. I don't see Ryan Atkins dropping over 150 points to finish anywhere but first, just based on the rest of the series, or the final race in the series, and doing well in Utah. But I think that it's going to be a really good battle. You have a few guys clustered in that like 8 to 10 range. Mark Batres, Ian Hosick, Rich Ryan. They're only and Aaron Newell. They're only separated total by 12 points. So a lot of flip flop in there. And Ryan Kent, if he has a good bounce back race, he could potentially knock off Johnny Luna-Lima, move back to third if Johnny doesn't have another great performance in Utah. So a lot of things to look forward to in the point series for the men in the final race of the year.
Just to recap those series points, Atkins in first with 1092, Kempson in second with 943, and John Luna-Lima in third with 889. Is there any way Atkins does not win the series?
Just looking at it, 149 points. I mean, I don't know about you. I don't think he's going to finish about 150th overall at Utah. That'd be pretty unlikely. So if he shows up, he's going to win the whole series.
It's amazing. He's second place, first place, second place for the 4 races.
Yeah, he's just the most consistent racer that I've ever seen besides John Albon. Like, it's unreal. And even Albon's had a couple, like, iffy finishes in some of the Spartan Race series when he came over here in, like, 2015 and 16. Not that, like, 8th is bad, but Atkins just doesn't have any. If he's out of the top 5, it's just a horrible race. So, yep, another future title to be earned by Atkins. And, I mean, I feel like if you surveyed most of the people at the beginning of the year, he would have probably been 90+% of people predicted him to end up in the top 5. But if you surveyed everyone in the sport, would you have guessed Ryan Kempson and Johnny Luna-Lima would be sitting in second and third heading into the final U.S. National Series race of the year? I bet not.
Ryan Kempson probably would have been the third or fourth Ryan that people would have picked for that.
Yeah, definitely. And, I mean, Johnny obviously had potential, but he never raced the U.S. National Series before. And it becomes a participation contest, especially. Like, if you don't run enough races, look what happened to Ryan Woods. He's sitting in 13th place with 615 just because he didn't finish Seattle. So you have to assume that everyone's going to be healthy the whole year, that they're going to run every single race, that they're going to do well enough to get top 4, since those are the only places that really matter. So there were just a lot of variables to come into play, but those guys have just brought it week in and week out every single race this year. And I mean, they're definitely shocks, but I'm really happy for the two of them that all the training and hard work's paid off, and that there's a lot more variety this year in the standings.
Before we talk about the women, you mentioned the standings. This is the first year they've had it where there's 5 races and all 5 races count. In previous years, there were 5 races, and your 4 best races counted for your series points. What do you think about the decision they made to make all 5 races count?
I'm not a huge fan of it, just because it forces you to make. I understand you need to make sacrifices to be a good racer. Obviously, you do that in training, but like, what if someone gets married in your immediate family, or a family member gets sick, or you have to travel for a sick parent or something, or you just have some crazy work deadline and you had your flight booked, but you just can't leave on Friday to go to or you get injured, or any crazy thing like that can happen throughout the course of the season. And to have everything line up, I mean, Ryan Woods, he missed Seattle. Robert Killian missed Seattle because he had a military commitment then. It's just really difficult to 100% commit. Obviously, everyone intends to if they're one of the top names up there, but life happens. And I think that it would have been a much better idea to maybe have had 6 races and your 5 best count if they're really intent on 5. But that's just my opinion. What do you think?
I totally agree. There are you can count the number of full-time OCR athletes on one hand, and you still have some fingers left over. All of the Ryan Woods is a dentist. Chiropractor. Who's a dentist? Chris Mendoza's a dentist.
Chris Mendoza, Chad Trammell,
Alexander Walker. A lot of dentists in the OCR field. Anyway, most of them have regular jobs, and all of them have lives. So, no, I agree with you. I don't see it changing, but I agree with you.
Yeah, I think bottom line, most of us can agree that Ryan Atkins was the best racer this year on a whole. He might not have had the most win because with those second places and stuff, but that doesn't mean he's a bad racer just because he doesn't win outright. If he's super close in second, that's still a ridiculous performance. And Kempson, I think he's earned that second place in the series just based on his credentials this year. He's been super consistent. Ryan Kent's had a couple good races. Like, most of it's pretty reasonable, but Ryan Woods, let's be real, he would have got second if he didn't have that penalty for Trustgate. And if he didn't miss Seattle, who knows what would have happened if he could have substituted a race, and he got third here. And I think that we all know Ryan Woods is better than the 13th best performer this year. So you can't just go by points to verify how someone's season went. So that's just my opinion. Same as VJ, like only 2 races and he's sitting in 15th place. Come on, that's not accurate.
VJ's 2 races, he got first place and second place. They had a good point when a comment. Okay.
Oh, I was going to say, VJ, you add 300 to his score, he gets 864. That would be currently 4th place. He obviously, the people behind or between like 4th and 14th are going to most likely run in Utah, and I'm assuming VJ will be there as well. But that would be insane if he only ran 3 races and ended up like top 5 in the series.
They had a good point. One of the commentators, I think it was Kevin Donahue, he said, Atkins has finished second 3 times, but each time he was second, it was to a different guy. So yeah, he's got, whatever the course is, there's not like a course that doesn't play to his strengths. He's strong across the board.
Yep, well-rounded. Kind of, Johnny even said that. He's like, the law of averages comes into play. You have to be really good at everything. You don't have to be the best at everything, but if you're really good at everything, it's going to add up, and you're going to like the results that you see.
Let's talk about the women. You and I both picked Rhea Kolbl to win the race, and we were both very confident about that. How did that prediction work out?
Unfortunately, we don't have playback of my predictions for that, the very real non-edited version also. But, yeah, I thought that Rhea was going to repeat based on her uphill running and she won last year. But you want to know what this gets me thinking? Everyone thinks of Big Bear, you have 5,200 feet of gain, you have 5,200 feet of descent. And if you're a better descender, you're going to outperform a better climber almost every single time. I think in the history of like major races, Cody Moat at the 2017 Tahoe Championship, he gained 7 minutes on a downhill followed by an immediately hard, like long uphill afterwards. But besides that, there's never really been someone who gains an insurmountable lead on the uphill. It's always, you can make it up on the descent in general. Like Killian last year, killing everybody at Tahoe, and then he got reeled in by Albin and Atkins on the descent, and then he ended up finishing 3rd. And I feel like Lindsay is without question the best descender in the sport, and as amazing as Rhea's climbing is, she might be a little faster or a stronger climber than Lindsay going up, but that gap is easily beaten on the downhill, so Lindsay definitely overtook her. And you can see that in the results where she had over a 4-minute win. So I feel like strong descending is going to get you the win. And look at Johnny Luna-Lima, unbelievable descender, and he just ran away with the thing. So I feel descending is a much more, just based on the amount of ground that you can put on someone, is a much more important thing. If you're an adequate uphill runner, if you can descend, that's gonna take you further.
We don't talk about descending a lot when we talk about training for OCR. People talk about getting on an incline treadmill and training your ascents and training obstacle proficiency and pull-ups and dead hangs and all that. But we don't. I mean, to train, what do you do to train descent speed?
Well, it helps. Like, I'm in Colorado Springs. I'm lucky where I have that kind of stuff. But someone like where I can just go to the trails 15 minutes from my house and be at a 10,000 foot mountain. But someone like Kirk DeWint, who lives in the Midwest, and he definitely doesn't have any hills. For him to be, 9th place at this race, that's pretty incredible, because how can you practice descents if you don't have a downhill? Like, there's no treadmill that goes negative 15%. That'd be terrifying. But I don't know. You kind of just have to do it. And a lot of people are afraid to practice descending because of just the eccentric load that it puts on you, and your quads just get destroyed. And that takes a couple days to recover from, makes you have a worse workout later in the week. So it really is a skill that that not enough people put a lot of pride in. But it makes a huge difference. And just think of it. Say you're going up Big Bear, you're like power hiking on one of those 30-40% slopes, you're probably going like 3 miles an hour if you're one of the best people. And say the leader's going 3.2 and you're going 3.0. It might look like they're putting in a huge gap, but in reality, it's only like 5 or 6% faster than you. If you go downhill and you're running a 5:30 mile instead of a 6-minute mile, that's like 8%. So you're just right there, taking a better line than someone or not throwing on the brakes. You're putting on a much bigger distance for even the same effort if you're just putting a better line on the downhill. And I feel like that's what really makes the biggest difference. And we're seeing it repeatedly. Like Albin winning at OCR Worlds, he has these long descents and he just goes in roughly tied or in a group of people, and then he comes out 4 minutes ahead on a downhill. And the same thing happens at Tahoe all the time. And Lindsay, that's why she's winning. She's the best female descender in the world. So I just don't understand why not enough people are putting enough practice into descending. Obviously, you're limited by your surrounding terrain and stuff, but I personally feel like it's more important than just uphill.
So Lindsay in first, Rhea in second, and then in third place was Nicole Mericle. What did you think of Nicole's performance?
Yeah. I was honestly pretty impressed because I didn't think that she was as strong of a power athlete in terms of climbing. I feel like if it's runnable, that's where she's her most dangerous, just because she has that amazing top end speed, and if she can stride out, no one can really run with her when she's going out. But I was really impressed with the steep slopes. She didn't have a great performance last year. She was like roughly 25-30 minutes off the win last year. So for this year, for her to have finished only about 7 minutes off the lead, that's a really good performance. She's obviously been crushing it the whole year. So for people to be like, oh, she got third place, that's a rough year. That's a rough performance based on how she's done so far. I mean, this was right in Rhea's wheelhouse in terms of climbing up and descending. It was right in Lindsay's wheelhouse. So for her to have been at least really competitive and put about 8 minutes on fourth place, like having a comfortable third, I think this is a really good performance by Nicole regardless.
In fourth place was Leanne Wastany. We got to see actually a lot of her on the footage.
Yeah, Wastany. I know she corrected on Bracken's podcast, so just want to...
Leanne, I apologize. Leanne Wastany.
Yeah. But yeah, she is one of those just underrated racers, always there in like sixth place. She just never, she had I think she got third in Utah last year, but she's always overlooked as like, oh, she's not on that same level as Rhea, Nicole, Lindsay, Faye, Alyssa, but she's right there. And I mean, she beat Faye by several minutes, and she had about Alyssa was 253 and Leanne was 241. I mean, that is crushing. So for her to have finished fourth in a major race like this, and having a bunch of the camera footage on her, I hope that it finally gives her a little bit more attention and a little more respect from the racers. I feel like fans are learning Tyler Veerman, Johnny Luna-Lima, Ryan Kempson more this year, but it's still, the women's field is kind of doesn't have that those newcomers recognized as well yet. But I don't think that Leanne's really a newcomer. She's been doing this for years, but I hope that she kind of gets the recognition that the newer names like the Kempson and Veermans that I mentioned, that she starts getting a little more respect.
How about Rose Wetzel in sixth place?
Yeah, that was definitely a good performance, and she is sitting in fifth place in the series, so with a lead of about 22 points over Leanne. So as long as if Leanne gets top four, that'll basically, yeah, because 24 separates fourth and fifth. If Leanne gets fourth and Rose gets fifth in Utah, then Leanne's going to pass Rose and jump into fifth in the series. But if not, Rose kind of controls her own destiny, and I doubt they're going to be separated by 22 places. Like, there's no chance if they're not if they're both out of the top five. So I think that those two have a lot to lose, Rose controls the fate of the two of them for the series in Utah.
So talking about the points, Lindsay and Nicole are kind of by themselves at the top of the standings. Lindsay's in first with 11:28. Nicole's in second with 11:04, 24 points behind Lindsay Webster. There are 24 points between each of the places. Second, third place, third, fourth place, fourth, fifth place have a 24-point gap for the Utah race. What do you think the odds are that Lindsay and Nicole finish tied after it's all said and done?
Well, don't forget about this. Between first and second, it's 36 points. So that's the big game changer. If Nicole finishes first in Utah and Lindsay gets second, Nicole wins the series by 12 points. If Lindsay loses by 1 place, like Nicole gets second and Lindsay gets third, or Nicole gets third, Lindsay gets fourth, very unlikely, then they will tie. And I'm going to assume, since both of them will have had 2 wins at this point, I don't know how the tiebreaker would work. What do you think would happen?
In the past, the tiebreaker has been just the results of the last race. So
actually, yeah, you know what? It definitely would be, because if they're both 2 wins and then it's head-to-head in race number 5, it's whoever wins head-to-head in that race, I'm assuming.
So I think the short answer, the simple answer, and it's not 100, is that whoever, between the two of them, whoever wins in Utah wins the series. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, basically as long as they're like both top 5, which there's no chance they're not going to be, basically winner takes all. That's how it's looking.
And then behind them, Kolbl has 885.
Rhea is the only person who mathematically could finish in first. That would take Lindsay and Nicole not showing up in order for her to win, and I don't see that happening. But with 885, she could, in theory, get 1185. The rest, and Alyssa, I guess, also could get 1113 and get her into second place. But basically, Lindsay and Nicole are a lock as long as they show up and finish the race to finish in the top 2.
Like, really, they could show up and walk the course and still win, right?
Oh, yeah. Because the women's field doesn't have 150 people where they'd get low enough points at that rate. But I don't see any way that they're not going to finish 1-2. So winner take all, and I think that both of them realize the stakes. And Lindsay's getting into that ridiculous fitness right now, so I think it's going to be tough to take her down the rest of the year.
So if you had to, and again, we're still a little bit out from Utah, but if you had to pick Lindsay or Nicole to win Utah and win the series, who would you pick?
When in doubt, pick Lindsay on anything.
And over on the men's side, we pretty much agree Ryan Atkins needs a miracle to not. Someone else would need a miracle to beat Ryan Atkins in the series.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, him having that 149-point cushion, that's going to be really difficult to overcome. As long as he's healthy and finishes the race, there's no chance that he's not going to finish in first.
All right. Jack, we mentioned the predictions. How can people make predictions for the next race or get training advice?
So if you want to enter the contest that I was mentioning, it's really cool. A lot of people go to yanceycamp.com, and then there's a trivia and contest tab about a week before every single major race for Spartan, and we're probably going to do it for OCR Worlds. We were going to do it for Toughest Mudder, but there just wasn't the level of competition now that they don't have prize money. But basically list your top 5 men, top 5 women, who you think is going to finish. We're going to do it for Utah, West Virginia, Tahoe, NORAM, like 3K and 15K, just any big race, we're going to have it. And just whoever you think, the winner gets this amazing, I'm not even lying, it's like $400 worth of Beat Elite and just other products by Human N. They're sponsoring it. They've been really great, and they're just unbelievable help for your training and supplementing your workouts. So definitely worth entering, and you win some Gooder sunglasses as well. And check out some of Yancey's training as well while you're on there. If you're not familiar with them, great trainer. And basically you just got to see who actually thinks is going to do well. I named earlier that 99.1% of people thought that Ryan Atkins was going to win the race. So no one thought that he wasn't going to win realistically. And then look what happened. Johnny did. So it's really cool to see if how predictions turn out. So give it a shot.
I bet you Johnny Luna-Lima is much more popular as a pick next race than he was his last race.
Ryan Kempson went from like 2 people voting for him in Jacksonville to like 90 the next race. So, yep. But guess what? Cody Mode and Hobie Call are probably going to be there.
You are correct.
That's going to be madness, that race.
That will shake things. Like, essentially the series has been decided, right? With Atkins at 4 strong races.
But I mean, a lot can change.
Oh man, that'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, we'll go into detail on that later, but that's going to be insane.
Jack, how can people find you on social media?
Message me on Instagram at Jack_Bauer_OCR.
Jack, any last thoughts on the Spartan US Championship Series?
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to the cameramen who were following the race and just the production crew. I thought that they did a really good job making the final, like the amended coverage. No one likes to wait another day knowing the results ahead of time. They'd rather see the live feed. But if you watched last year's video and it was all grainy and staticky and just terrible cell phone reception, it was really nice to see a great finished product, professionally done. And I thought they did a really good job in terms of the final production.
You know, I agree. It's made a world of difference having the guys chasing them, like following them throughout the whole race, instead of just like a drone shot of the woods from above.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it shows you just the pure athleticism. When a cameraman can't keep up with the guy running downhill, they're fast. And I think that the sprint coverage was also really good. I don't know if you saw that yet, but it was they got really bad weather. They had to close the course. Instead of going up the mountain where they wanted to, they ended up having 2 abbreviated loops. So it was like 2 1.5 mile loops. So everyone had to do the bucket carry twice. They had to do the spear throw twice. And I thought that it made a really, really interesting race. I think that would be super cool because a lot of people complain that Spartan isn't obstacle dense enough. Well, there's your answer. You have a couple of 1.5 mile loops. Who cares if you're doing the same thing twice? Like if it's a bucket carry or a sandbag carry, like it's still a carry. If you're doing a couple spear throws, it's still a couple risky times where there could be lead changes due to burpees and, doing the rig a couple times. I don't know. I thought it was a really cool format and I hope they do it again going forward.
That'll be cool to watch. Jack Bauer, we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Looking forward to Utah in a few weeks.
Awesome. Jack Bauer, thanks much. Special thanks to Jack Bauer for appearing in this episode. Well done, Jack. Talk with you soon about Utah. Hey, we have a new episode of World's Toughest Podcast over on your favorite podcast player. Check that out. After you listen to that, make sure you download the new episodes of Overcome and Run and Obstacle Running Adventures as well. Part of the OCR Report family. Just like you are. You're part of our family. I mean, you might be like the weird part. The uncle that makes inappropriate comments or the grandpa that wants to talk politics at Thanksgiving. But still, we love you. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. I will talk with you soon. Go spend time with someone you love.